Good afternoon, everyone. It has been an inspiring and empowering week, and I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Sandra Moss, and I am a news anchor here in San Diego, where I've worked for the past 30 years. And I am thrilled to be able to introduce to you today this wonderful panel of inspiring, empowering, successful women. And we're going to talk about our lives in the workplace. First, I would like you to meet Supervisor Kristen Gaspar at the very end in the green dress. She is well known in San Diego County. She is our supervisor for District 3. She is also the vice chairman of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, the youngest woman ever elected to the board. Before that, she was on the Encinitas City Council and went on to become that city's first elected mayor. As supervisor, she's focused on reducing homelessness, enhancing public safety, and improving our streets, infrastructure, and neighborhoods. Please give a warm welcome now to Shirani Denise Little, right next to Kristen. She is an associate professor at USC Marshall School of Business. As an author and renowned scholar, Shirani speaks domestically and internationally on leadership, equity, and empowerment and strategic organizational management. Susan Miller, welcome. Susan is Director of Global Product Security for Oracle, which apparently has a table right up front here. Susan has taken an active role in leadership development and mentoring, currently leads the Southern California region for Oracle's women's leadership. And also a warm welcome for Michelle Pagney, Executive VP of Human Resources for the San Diego County Credit Union. Glad you're here today. Michelle has a demonstrated track record of collaboration and commitment. She's responsible for developing and directing human resource policies and programs at SDCCU. She also oversees organizational planning, training, construction, health, and employee services. And finally, that's a lot. Welcome to Kristen Wagerbauer. She is Senior Director for Northrop Grumman Aerospace System. We're glad you're here today, Cindy. She is in charge of marketing communications, has been in the industry for 20 years, and previously owned a consulting company. One of her clients was NASA. So a very interesting and diverse panel. And we're going to begin. I found it very interesting that the topic that they called our little panel today was leading in the new normal of uncertainty and chaos. And I figure, I don't know if that was because I work in television news in a newsroom, which is certainly a place of chaos these days, or what. But that wasn't the feeling behind the curtain among all of us. Things are not so unsteady where we work. But I wanted to begin, because it is such a dynamic, powerful group of women, my first question, and I'll direct this, Kristen, to you. You can begin with your answer. As a person with a powerful job and as a position of power that you have as a supervisor in San Diego County, when was it that you realized in your career, because I know you have also a private company, when did you first feel powerful? At what age, and what was that moment that light bulb went on, realizing that you had a lot of influence?
Actually, it took a while, because in my opinion, when you're elected to office, that's meaningful. But it didn't give me this feeling, this overwhelming sense of power that I had and control. The most powerful moment for me was actually when I failed to take off my name tag one day. And I went to do the great mom thing to pick up pizza on my way home late after a meeting. And I didn't take off my name tag, and a woman approached me in line and she said, "Excuse me, I know you're our mayor and I'd really love for you to meet my daughter. Because we're here, she's had a really tough day. And so we came to get pizza to lift her spirits. She's had a really tough time with the girls at school." And so I went and I met her daughter, and I spoke to her daughter and I said, "Look, you have got to believe in yourself. Even in times where people around you, they don't believe in you, and eventually they'll have no choice but to get on board and believe in you too." And it was just this moment that we had, this exchange in this pizza place. And it wasn't until 6 months later when I ran into this mother again, and she said, "You have no idea how much that single moment changed my daughter's life." And it really made me well up with tears, and I thought, that was an impact. That's a human being that just by the virtue of having this name tag on with that title behind it, that to me is powerful. It's not really in the decisions that we make day to day as leaders. It's that direct impact that you see in your community that's very powerful.
Interactions in words, very powerful, which I'm sure, Sharani, you come into contact with every day at the university.
Yes, and I think it really is important. I've taught the undergraduate students, the graduate students, and I want to give a shout out to our EMBA program here from Marshall. And it really is important. And for me, my journey has been really coming into myself. And I think the power came about, I won't share the age, just last week when I was 25. But when I realized that I had to change the way I thought about myself, and I call it deficit thinking, where I really would not give myself a break. And in the classroom, that's what I like to share now with students, that our journey really is our destination. And sometimes throughout life, we perceive it as a detour. And we beat ourselves up about it, and we figure out all the things that we didn't do right. And so my power really began to evolve when I recognized that I have to feel confident about my assets and what I bring to the table and the wonderful things that I accomplish. And I think that's when internal power, real empowerment begins to happen, and then you can have a much broader impact on people, my students, the world, our communities.
Susan?
Yes, so early in my career, I worked really hard and trying to get ahead, but it was the point when I was about 25, and a woman who was senior in her career picked me to take this next role that many people that I was working with wanted. And she believed in me enough to say, you're the one that should take on this role. And I don't know if I felt as, that I could do the role, but the fact that she believed in me, then I started believing in myself and taking on that power and feeling more powerful. So I had to use her to help me.
That's good, 25 years old, that's
Yeah.
learning early.
Yeah.
Michelle?
I think I would really mimic what you said about having someone task you for a position, tap you on the shoulder. But I think also it's when I realized that employees particularly listened to what you actually said. And I would see people years ago that I didn't even remember, and they would stop me and say, you changed my life. Remember when my mother had Alzheimer's and you gave me some guidance and you helped me with resources? And I went, wow. And they thanked me for making a difference. And I thought, I better get a lot more careful about what comes out of my mouth now, because I guess people are listening. So that was pivotal for me.
And I say that there's probably a connection between everyone. I come from a public servant background for my parents. They're both teachers and librarians. And so by association, by name in the high school, I was known as the teacher's daughter. I wasn't known as Cindy. And then when I decided that I wanted to be my own self, I decided to pick up and leave Connecticut with a one-way ticket to California, live with a man that I since now have married and have 2 kids with. And that's when I realized that I had power of myself. All I had to do was just believe.
Thank you very much. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about, some people think that when it comes to a work environment, support is very important, but some people think that women tend to undermine other women in the workplace. And I find in my line of work, I work in television broadcasting at a TV station here in San Diego, that women are my biggest advocates in the newsroom. And I work with a lot of them, and most of them are half my age now, but we are our greatest support system. And I find that I get most of the support in my career from women. And so I'm interested in asking all of you, who are your biggest backers in the workplace? Are they men? Are they women? And maybe you have a short story to share. And I'll start with you.
Okay? I think it's a mix. In my case, it was a mix. I live and work in Northrop Grumman. It's a defense contractor. There are a lot more men than there are women. And the only way you're going to move ahead and do what you need to do is to find advocates and champions for what you say and what you do. And your reputation is everything. So if you believe in what you do and you don't over-promote who you are and you just keep on moving forward, men and women alike will become your champions. And I think that's the power of a diverse workforce, as well as one that is old school with defense contracting, as well as new thinking that we're all seeing now in the workplace. So,
Jump in, anybody?
yeah.
I have a story that I could share. Recently in my division, we had a large cutback. We were going to cut back perhaps 40% of our workforce. And my VP at the time told his whole staff, including me, that we needed to go find as many jobs as we could for people in our group. So that meant I took it on to myself to write down every VP I knew and write them an email and get to know whether or not they had jobs open or not. And what happened was a lot of the women were very supportive and motivated you to try to find jobs for people in your group and for myself as well. But a lot of the guys that I worked with also had the opportunity to find the actual jobs. So I think you need both women supported in your network as well as men, because the men were able to understand what jobs were available and helped us all get those roles.
Sharani, you're nodding.
Yes, I agree. I think oftentimes we think about mentors, but I've also learned throughout my career about sponsors. And I think you need both men and women that you need to develop relationships with. It's really about who can invest in you, and it really starts with you. I'll never forget when I was invited to go to Arizona to teach, and I was 25, had never lived away from home, moving to a new state, and my department chair said, "I want you to come," and it wasn't about her concern for me professionally, but she knew, she had seen something in me and recognized that I was going to work hard. And so I think your support system will evolve throughout your journey. And as you are being supported, you really develop leadership skills to support others. That was the biggest lesson that I've learned. And I saw a quote, it said, "When one teaches, two learn." And so I always look for opportunities where I can both learn and give.
Kristen?
Well, first and foremost, I'm so thankful for all of the female trailblazers before me, because I can honestly sit here and tell you with assurance that I don't think about gender too much. I don't think about it when I apply for a job or strive to accomplish something, but that's because of the work that was done before me. So the burden that I carry, the responsibility that I believe that I carry, is continuing to blaze that trail forward. And what that means to me and what that looks like, I spoke at a career day one time and got the obligatory thank you notes back from the 7th graders who all stared at me like this the entire time. And they all said how wonderful you are because they were told to say that. But there was one that was a little bit different, and it was a young woman, and she said, "Thank you for coming to speak today. I believe that someday I'd like to be the mayor." And then she followed it up with a line that will always haunt me. It said, "I never knew that a woman could be the mayor." And I thought, well, how could that be true? I reread it just to make sure. But oftentimes, if it hasn't been seen, in particular by a young person, they're unaware that that potential exists. And so it's up to women like us that have reached a level of success in our lives to carry that message forward, to be examples, to be an example to young women. And that's what I think about, continuing to blaze that trail forward.
Let me ask you, Michelle, do you think that it is true that women have to work harder than men to get ahead in the workplace? Have you found that experience in your career?
Duh. What's your next question, Sandra?
Elaborate, please.
I'm in a really great place now. I work for a female CEO. We have a very balanced team, very supportive male and female, so I'm very, very fortunate. But we can't forget that not everybody has that. And, I've been told in my lifetime, and I know I'm probably the oldest person up here, I have been told, I'm not going to hire you because you're pregnant. I've been told, I'm not going to hire you because, frankly, I need a man for this job. I've been told those things in my lifetime. And I think we can't forget, we're not that far from that, and it still exists out there.
Isn't it frustrating that it still exists? The wage disparity, the pay disparity. I mean, it's, 2017, and we haven't come that long of a way, really. It's very frustrating, I think. Sharani?
Yeah, I was just saying, especially in education, we'll find that women are overrepresented in K through 12, but when we get to the faculty level, it's surprising, and I'll say that sarcastically actually, that we see very few women, and honestly, women of color. And so I think it's imperative, of speaking to the representation, that we have to raise our hand and say, this is not accidental. This is intentional when we see the disparities of representation in terms of leadership and opportunity, and that we have to ask questions. You were asking earlier about feeling powerful. Earlier in my career, I wouldn't go into committee meetings and say, why do these numbers look this way? I didn't feel empowered enough. But now I walk into every meeting and I ask those questions up front, because I can take the hit. And some younger faculty may not be able to take that hit in certain stages in their career. And I think each of us as women have to make those decisions and decide, where can we intervene in the process? Where can we make change? And as the mother of twin boys who are 18, I just say, bring it on.
Krista, you are the youngest member of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, a panel that is mostly dominated by men. There is another woman on the county board. But do you feel in your career, I know you've only been on the supervisor board for a very short time, but have you experienced that women, you have to work harder for longer to get farther?
Well, it's actually a little bit of a running joke that when the Supervisor Jacob was running her first campaign for county supervisor, I was actually running my first campaign too. Only mine was for elementary school president, and hers was for the county board of supervisors. So there definitely is a difference in age and sometimes a difference in gender. I tend to work around a lot of men, so it's nice to see other female leaders. I tend to think we try to stick together and support one another. We certainly share stories of interest. Regardless of the task at hand, whether it's politics or my career, I tend to try to run in my own lane, even in situations where adversity exists. I think it's me on me. How do I better myself? How do I move myself forward with that laser sharp focus forward? So I try not to dwell too much on things that still may exist around me, or differences in gender and age, that sort of thing, and just run in my own lane. It's me on me.
Throughout our careers, people have given us advice over the years about how to succeed and how to excel. Perhaps you could share a story or tell us a tale about a mentor or a person that made a difference, the best career advice that they gave you to help you grow in your job. Cindy?
Oh, there's many. I think currently I have a wonderful boss who unfortunately could not be here tonight, which is why I'm here. So she gave me this opportunity to speak with you about my experience in the world and in the business. She is a fan of saying what you're going to say and do what you're going to do, and to play the game straight. As you said, don't play the game for somebody else to beat you at or you to win against. Just play it for your own sake. And that's pretty much her mantra and my mantra. That's why we do get along very well. But the biggest part, I think, working in a defense contractor and working in a male-dominated society at that company, is knowing that you have the power to move and change and actually influence where we're going. And we're seeing it a lot with diversity and inclusion, and kind of bringing lots of different kinds of thought together, not just in color or in gender, but in thought. And so I think companies like Northrop Grumman are changing the way that defense contractors are seen in the world, which is a positive thing. So I think we have hope.
Best career advice, anybody?
I think one career advice that I received was to not settle, to don't give up on your dreams, keep going. I mean, we've heard it a lot, but it really impacted me quite a bit, that sometimes I think you get in a rut. You've been in a job for a while and it's good enough. And I think you have to sit at that moment and realize, no, this isn't what I was all about. I really want to take this extra step. I think Scout said that earlier today, that she decided what her goal was and she wanted to move forward towards it. So I think don't get in that rut and take the risks and take the next step.
I'll build on that as well. When I was working at University in Arizona, my department chair told me, you should quit your job and go back to school. And at the time, it looked like a very big risk, but I could have taken a new contract for 3 years or be 3 years into my doctoral program. And that was one of the best pieces of advice. I was afraid. I was thinking that, wow, I'm going to quit a job. But education was always a great investment. And so now I think about it this way. Sometimes we have to lean in, but more often we have to jump in. And jumping sometimes is a little bit scary, but we always make it to the other side.
And I can build on that too. This is great. For me, it was eliminate the word try from your vocabulary. And it's hard to try and do that, right? But that word just gives you this easy exit door, the exit strategy. Well, try. And usually you say that when you don't mean it. So it's you're doing something or you're not. You're not trying to do something because that indicates that you're not fully invested. You're not giving it 1,000%. Now, if I can tell you with assurance, I tried to run for county supervisor this last time. And I didn't just try, I did. And there was a point in time where I actually lost the race on election night. I had lost until they counted the absentee votes. But I couldn't sit there and say, well, I tried to run for county supervisor. I did. And I can tell you with assurance, there wasn't one more ounce of me I could have given. And even in that time of loss, because sometimes you fail, there are no guarantees that even if you put 1,000% in, but I had no regrets. It's the no regret model. If you just eliminate try, you do. And if you choose to repeat when you fail, that's fine. But 1,000% at all times.
Michelle?
I think my boss gave me really good advice. I was, early on in my career at SDCCU, and I was trying to be nice. I wanted everybody to like me. I didn't want to offend anybody. And she said, look, there's only one person here you really have to please, and that's me. I'm your boss. Stick with me, follow the vision, and you'll get there. And she was really right. It was really freeing to hear her say that I didn't have to make everybody like me.
Right. It gave you focus too, something, a goal. So raise your hand if you have children. Our panel. Everybody has children. So you know you have twins. So juggling everything, your home life, making sure the dog stays alive. And then of course these very powerful jobs that we all have. What is your best coping strategy so you don't burn out? And do you have a mantra or do you have a philosophy? Because we really can't have it all. I think most people realize that. Something has to give a little bit every time. What kind of advice could you offer to the women and men in the audience today in that regard?
I once heard from the CEO of Autodesk, Carol Bartz, and she gave the advice that it's a negotiation with your family. You let them know what you can and what you can't do, and therefore if you achieve higher than that, then that's a good situation. So you tell your daughter that you can attend the Christmas play and the Halloween carnival, but you don't sign up for everything, and then you don't feel bad about missing on certain events or what have you. And I think it's that. They talk about bogus balance, so it's somewhere in there, but if you let your expectations known throughout your family.
I think that's really important because I do a lot of traveling, and so I'm up in LA a lot, traffic coming back home. You never know what you're going to face. But saying to my daughter that I'll be there for a game knowing that I'm not going to make it has hurt her in the past. So I think you're right. That's one of my mantras is actually to be honest, say what you can do, and tell them why you can't do something else. And the why is the biggest component of that storytelling, so they don't think you're just blowing smoke.
Does anyone have guilt about not being able to do it all? Do you feel guilt about, and what kind of guilt?
I have felt guilt. There have been late nights after the children are asleep and I'm crying. And it was because, again, I was thinking in my head, I'm not sufficient. I'm not enough. And I didn't give myself a break to recognize you cannot do everything. Mm-hmm. And I had to grow into balance. And I'm still learning balance and putting myself first. And I had to ask myself, is this a pattern of behavior? Am I putting the kids first, my job first, my education first? I have to put myself first because I can't give my children anything that I don't have. So if I'm depleted physically, emotionally, spiritually, then it will be, conveyed in my children's lives. And so letting up off yourself, being kind to yourself, coming to women's conferences is a great opportunity
Or the
to
spa.
relax.
I was going to say the spa works too, right? My coping strategy is that I do take it day by day. I actually look at my calendar for the next day at 10 p.m. because otherwise I'd be completely overwhelmed. So I've had this strategy in my mind that I try my best to take it day by day. And if that's not good enough and it's still overwhelming, then you take it hour by hour. And if that's still not good, then it's minute by minute or second by second. And lo and behold, I was at an Al-Anon meeting once with a loved one. And this was the strategy that they were promoting in recovery. That if you look at this big, overwhelming, daunting schedule, you have problems. But if you pare it down to what do I need to do in this minute, in this second, in this day, it becomes a lot easier.
Any other comments about guilt and how you cope with it?
I
You don't
think
have to have guilt, not everyone.
My kids are older, so I don't have guilt like I used to. I think it comes back, I think Deborah Rosen said she's learning to say that word, the no word today. It's learning to say no. You can't say yes to everybody. You can't say yes to every commitment. And that'll free you up on the guilt piece.
And that's a good point. How do you say no? I know that a lot of women in the workplace especially tend to be people pleasers, and it's difficult to say no because I find when I say no, I'm wondering if I'm losing out on an opportunity maybe, whether it's someone wants me to speak somewhere or do something. And my friend calls it FOMO, fear of missing out. And I do have a little bit of a case of that. But how do you say no in a respectful way that doesn't come across as rude?
No.
That's it.
Yeah, for me, I'm in a unique situation. I'm elected to office, and the first time I have staff, so I get to say yes and smile and then make my staff person say no. But actually, I think you answered it already, that you have to be respectful and understand that people want you at all times to be honest with them, even if your answer disappoints them. So I frequently, as an elected official, have to look out a room this size and tell them no, and it's an awful thing to have to do. And when I do have to say no to the room, which usually follows with boos and angry expressions, I make sure that I articulate my position clearly and make sure that people know that I recognize that they have a different opinion. And I think in that articulation, and also I say, when you have to say no, try to find that place of yes. What does that path look like to get to yes, and what would it take for you to get there?
Yeah, I'm really bad about saying no. However, I have strategies that I'm working on. And one is when an opportunity comes up and you're really too busy to take it on, then perhaps there's someone else that would see it as an opportunity for them. So you could suggest one or two names. Or if your boss comes to you with a new project and you can't take it on, perhaps you say, well, that would be great, we can do that. But then this other project would take a 3-month hit and do a negotiation. That's
Or throw your employee, fellow coworker under the bus.
Right,
That's
right,
always
right.
good. So-and-so might be interested in that. Experience. We all wish that we knew at the age of 23 what we know now after decades of trial and error and success and failure. What would you say to your younger self that you have learned through all of it?
You're actually going to survive. So plan a lot better because you're actually going to make it through it all. That's what I wish I had done.
I think it's stay the course. You know what you want in your heart. You might not know how to say it out loud. You might not know what it looks like in a picture or in a storybook of you, but just believe in your instincts and keep going on the course.
Say enjoy the ride, because lots of times you're after the next goal, and you forget to celebrate the little wins and have fun while you're going through your career.
I would say that you are enough, you matter, and to stay focused.
I would say you don't know everything. You're not expected to know everything, and that remains the same always.
Don't sweat the little stuff, right? Life is a journey, and we all learn along the way. I'd like to thank my group of remarkable panelists for being here today and sharing.
Thank our moderator.